Travis, my good soul. There's a few different types of knowledge, some of which have been given added meaning to include in a knowledge hierarchy. There is memorization knowledge. We go to grade school and college and university, and we are given textbooks and we are told to memorize them, and then we regurgitate that knowledge on tests for which we're graded according to our memorization ability rather than whether we actually know the subject matter. That kind of knowledge is preparing us for a career on Jeopardy. Yeah, that's about as good as it goes. There's the movie I just watched, All About Steve, Sandra Bullock. Sandra Bullock plays a woman who's memorized things in her life, and so she's a font of encyclopedic knowledge, and she annoys everybody because of that. Nobody cares about that kind of knowledge. Apparently Jeopardy wasn't big during that shooting of that movie, and so as a result she became isolated from society. Nobody liked her, everybody avoided her, and she lived as a hermit. And no cat though. And so when a guy does come around on a blind date, she overdoses. Because she just hasn't had experience, which is the next kind of knowledge in social graces. So yeah, the next one is experience you get just by living. You learn things. And public school system is designed so that children interact with each other to learn how to communicate with each other and to learn about others and communicate. That's the main reason why a public school system was decided here in the United States of America. And yet you still have those parents that refuse to have children learn the customs of other people because they consider it heathen, and so they isolate their children and homeschool them. So that kind of experience knowledge is deprived of those children, rather than teaching children true and correct principles that they can then govern their lives by, so that you don't have to fear when they go off to school if they're going to now worship Satan in the after-school Satan club at your kindergarten. They were in the news, those bastards. They're thinking to overthrow the Constitution, just like other religions are trying to do. But nonetheless, very clever on their part for how devious they are. Then there's people who believe things. This is more for religion, and believe it through a spiritual witness and call it knowledge. These are those who do not live in reality, who are anti-science, anti-truth in the form of logical argument. They use fallacies to live their lives, and they are weaponized to attack others who disagree with them and who criticize the fallacy positions that they hold and claim are knowledge. Don't understand why they don't understand why other people are resistant to be such suckers and losers. And especially when they're extorted and forced to believe as they do into their Kool-Aid drinking club. The after-school Kool-Aid drinking club. So yeah, they get very offended. Oh, where are you going, Mormons? Mormons? Why are you leaving? I haven't talked about the church yet. You put a thumbs down already? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, truth is hard, isn't it? You don't even believe your Book of Mormon. Alma, chapter 32, starting in verse 28. Boom, no spiritual witness. And so if you keep pushing a spiritual witness, you don't believe the Book of Mormon. It doesn't matter if you claim that the Book of Mormon is true. You don't believe it's true because you believe in a spiritual witness. So, and that's the final higher knowledge level, is that you use the science, agronomy in Alma 32, to recognize patterns, identify anomalies, develop Socratic method theories of logic, soundness, and then test those theories for confirmation, either through replication or repetition. That's confirmation. Math also can assist in that. But with our society the way it is, they're trying to do away with scientific learning. Like I said, the school systems aren't designed for it. They're designed to teach us to memorize what they want us to learn. And so then the big debate is, like, for example, in history, which history subjects should be banned because we don't want our kids to learn it. Rewriting history. Oh, no, science is wrong. Jesus created heaven and earth in 7 days, or 6 days, in 4004 BC, which means before Christ. And then Mormons think they've got extra special knowledge that no one else has, that Jesus was born on 6th of April, 1 AD. So take that, Christians and scientists. And Nelson came out on a couple of occasions and ordered Mormons. He's the president of the church. When he says something, it's an order. And Mormons are at various levels of knowledge to determine how they're going to obey him. And the majority of Mormons don't obey Nelson. I know because of my channel. He told you in this last conference to leave me alone. You didn't obey, have you? And so I guess that makes you wicked. Good job, Mormons, you're wicked. You're not obeying. If you're not obeying, you're sinning. And if you're sinning, you're wicked. It's really simple doctrine. But he's asked Mormons to know the Christ. And so the question for Mormons then is, which of the types of knowledge that I just listed for you are you knowing the Christ? Or are you wayside Mormons? That wayside, you don't even, can't talk to wayside Mormons. They don't even know the scriptures to know where that's coming from. I can get the memorization Mormons who've memorized that parable And they can tell me, well, you see, there's this man who had seed, and he planted his seed in various types of soil. One was the wayside, one was thorny, one was rocky, and one was good soil. And you can memorize it. I have associative memory. And so I don't have memorization knowledge. It's associative knowledge. I do memorize some things, but that's because of association. I memorize through association. The preamble, for example, we were forced to memorize it back in 4th grade. I still remember standing before Mrs. Sampika. All of us had our turn, and we had to stand before her as she had her little grade sheet book. And I had to memorize the preamble, and I keep forgetting the one line in there. I'd quote it for you, and you would then obviously know which line it is that I always miss. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Did I miss it? Or did I get it? Only you can find out. And then memorization of the 50 states, the capitals. You had to write it out on a paper of the United States. And then when I married a Canadian, half Canadian, she took me up to Canada, and her father laughed and thought that I didn't know all my 50 states with the capitals, and he was able to know every province of Canada and their capitals. Canadians are smarter, eh? But where are you in the knowledge of your Christ? And of course you believe Jesus is your Christ, because you're Christian, exactly like Christians, but Christians are the wrong Christians, and so they need to be rebaptized into the Church of Jesus Christ, because it's in the center of the name, so obviously they're Christian with Jesus as the Christ. And so you memorize that, or spiritual witness, about the scriptures, talking about him being born, and you learn that his name was supposed to be Emmanuel, but they violated the messenger angel's order and named him Jesus instead. Oh, you missed that? Your spiritual witness led you astray? You didn't have that memorized to know? Go back and read Matthew. Very clear. He quotes the Isaiah passage, doesn't name Isaiah, because Isaiah is the reverse of Jesus. Joshua, Yahshua. Isaiah is Shua Yah. But that would require learning at the higher level, where you have to study other languages, learn how the spelling creates the meaning, using science, because linguistics is a science, even if it's English. And so are you sure you want to do away with science in the schools? You'd have to do away with language. Because Jesus is anti-science. Oakes came out in the devotional, again repeating that he's anti-science, that you should use a spiritual witness to teach you English. Is that how you want your kids to be raised? Just spiritual witness determines what words are and how they're defined. Yeah, I'm sure that'll go over well in society. And so then you learn about him as a baby, and you sing the hymns and the Christmas songs from popular artists, because the orchestral hymns and classical music is boring. Not to me. I love Ode to Die Hard. That is just an awesome Birth of Jesus song. I was going to put in the theme song below, what if God was one of us? I could put Ode to Die Hard. And so, you then skip to when he's a boy, and he goes to the temple, and the prophets of the church and the manuals get it wrong about why he was there. And then it skips to John the Baptist. He's starting his ministry. And there are missing gaps in his history. And so what do? You just say, oh, well, if God wants us to know, he'll tell us through his living prophet, or we'll have to wait until we're dead. If it's essential to our eternal salvation, we'll know. And instead, there are others who speculate, fill in the blanks, and then call it knowledge, and think they have secret knowledge that no one else knows because they made it up. And yeah, that's one of the major problems, is that there's missing information. What happened? What's going on with his life? If we're supposed to know him, because how are we supposed to know him when he comes for the second coming? We're told that he's coming for the second coming, and Mormons are waiting for him. How will they know? Will the living prophet say, hey, this is Jesus Christ, like in my dream, on my mission? Yeah, I saw Jesus in my mission, in my dream. Yeah, I was in a big priesthood meeting where priesthood leaders or priesthood holders gathered at a stake building, packed the whole chapel back into the overflow. We were all wearing black suits, and the conductor, whether he was presiding or not, I don't know, the guy gets up, gives some introductions and business matters, and then he's interrupted and says, I now introduce to you Jesus Christ. And so behind me, because I'm facing the podium on the left side against the wall, and so behind me, at those doors in the chapel, they open up, some security comes in wearing suits, and then Jesus comes in a white robe, and then comes walking down the aisle, stops at my row, turns, looks at me, and then telepathically tells me, I just barely made it. I wake up, and I'm going, what did he mean by that? What do you mean I just barely made it? On my mission? I'm here. I made it. Is that what he's referring to? Is he talking about my exaltation? That it's made sure? That I just barely made it? That there was some doubt? And I'm kind of young. Are we sure it's that early in my life? And so, yeah. Hilarious. But, I mean, do I know Jesus now? Because I had dreams about him? Oh, yes, there's been more dreams where I've had conversations with Jesus. Does that mean that I know him? Is it really him in my dreams? Mormons would say no. I'm being deceived by Lucifer, pretending to be Jesus. Hilarious. And so what if I were to tell you, because we're at 20 minutes, so let's end this. What if I were then to tell you that everything you have learned in all your speculations about the second coming, because you cannot obey the voice you do not know. You kind of have to know him. Because if he does appear, is it because he came from outer space? Did you see him come from outer space? Or did he just tell you he came from outer space? And is there no one else who can come from outer space? So therefore it has to be him? That Mormon apologists are trying to apologize for Jesus' coming? It's him because he came from outer space. We didn't see him come from outer space, but logically, he would never lie to us. And since he told us that he came from outer space, therefore he is the living Christ, and we should obey him, whatever he tells us to drink. Then there are those who believe in space aliens. What if it's a space alien and he comes and says, "I'm Jesus," which just happens to be his name on his home planet? Are you then going to think, that's what the scriptures meant? That would never happen, Travis, because they have to have such a technology so far advanced that they'd have to travel through a wormhole. Speculation is fun. Can produce great movies and TV shows, but can tend to get people going off the wacky end. So what if I told you that you've been deceived? In the Book of Mormon, 1 Nephi, chapter 1, verse 2. Oh, here he goes again. The Book of Mormon. Nephi is the character talking here. And he says, "Yea, I make a record in the language," there's that science word, "of my father, which consists of the learning of the Jews and the language of the Egyptians." What then is the learning of the Jews? Is it Christianity with Jesus? If you just said yes because your spiritual witness said yes, flip the coin again. You got it wrong. Jesus is a Greek name from the Hebrew name Joshua. Not Jehovah, Joshua. So the book of Joshua in the Old Testament that follows Deuteronomy, yeah, that's the book of Jesus. It is a common name. So does that mean that it's really him because Matthew changes prophecy to name him Jesus rather than Emmanuel? What is Joseph Smith's name for our Christ? I'll give you a hint. You all know the location. Adam Ondai Amen. Oh, Emmanuel. Amenel. Is that it? Yeah. You can use your memorization knowledge for that much. So the name of the church isn't Jesus Christ, is it? At least under Joseph Smith. And why does he not say the name Amen? Why does he not frequently repeat the name Amen? Because this church keeps repeating the name Jesus. Nelson even demands that Mormons constantly, frequently, repetitively say the name Jesus. And those of you who memorize know which section of the Doctrine and Covenants I'm referring to. Section 107 for those of you who don't memorize and only use a spiritual witness. Right there in the beginning, talking about the name of the priesthood. To avoid the too frequent repetition of the name, and he never says the name anywhere there. Even when he gives the name of the church, he leaves out the name. He says Son of God. That's not the name. And so what is the name? Well, obviously it's in the language of the Egyptians. Is Amen an Egyptian name? Emmanuel? Why, yes. Yes, it is. It's the sun god at noonday of the Egyptians, the god of gods. During the 18th dynasty, which just happens to be the same name as David Moses, that's a coincidence. I'm sure that the Jews don't originate from Egypt, that Israel wasn't part of Egypt, and that the kings of Israel and Judah had to give tribute to Egypt, but they weren't independent nations. Well, there's this Lehi, he's having a vision and he sees Jesus. In verse 9, and it came to pass that he saw one descending out of the midst of heaven, and he beheld that his luster was above that of the sun at noonday. Jesus, right? Because 3 Nephi 11, he says his name's Jesus, just like Matthew. The prophecy is that his name is Emmanuel, and so he's called Jesus. And so that's the name he was given. That's the name he was raised up to believe his name is. And so he's telling everybody, yeah, on my birth certificate, my name is Jesus. So he comes to America, hey, my name's Jesus. Sure, he's not an imposter whatsoever. Or is he in the learning of the Jews? Do you know what the learning of the Jews is? Have you memorized that? Or is it a spiritual witness? Or do you have experience? Or have you used science? Because certainly you don't just believe and then call it knowledge. The learning of the Jews, Christ, Messiah, in Hebrew, translated into English, which is not phonetically the same, is a human, a mortal human. Mortal parents, both the Father, so there's no need for confusion as to whether Heavenly Father is Father Amen or Adam. Don't need to change the nature and character to make it creepy that he comes to his daughter on earth and has a child out of child bride incest. Because it's the learning of the Jews, so you don't take it literally. And then you would know about Hatshepsut of the 18th dynasty, David Moses's, and her story of how she became Pharaoh. But we're wrapping it up, so we're not going to tell you that story again, because I have to keep repeating things for my audience because of the way YouTube is designed. I have to keep doing numerous videos each and every single day in order to keep and maintain audience viewership. It's so annoying. I've been doing this for years, and still YouTube refuses to allow me to have constant, exponentially increasing views, as all other people do. And so then there's Joseph Smith, who in verse 40 of the second vision, which this is the bicentennial year of, why is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints leaving that information out? They're keeping it a sacred secret from you. You'd think that they'd be all over it, like Nelson tried for the bicentennial year of the first vision. Did that get botched so badly that he just decided not to do this bicentennial year? Or is there another reason? Because Joseph Smith says, our Christ is the learning of the Jews' Christ. Quotes Deuteronomy 18:15 through 19, which is what the Jews use as their Christ, a man like Moses, born and raised as a descendant of King David Moses. Verse 16 of section 103. Joseph Smith prophesies here. Therefore, I will raise up. There's that same wording. And yep, sure enough, who shall lead them like as Moses led the children of Israel. Here's the man like Moses. This is the Jewish Christ. Joseph Smith is about to reveal further light and knowledge. You promised to send us of Jesus, right? Unto my people. A human mortal baby of mortal parents in the latter days who will be Mormon, which means from the Brighamite branch off. You do know there were other branch offs after Joseph was assassinated. Didn't you? I mean, the church doesn't tell us. They tell us that Brigham Young was the authorized successor because we now have the president of the Quorum of the 12 who becomes the successor of the church, which they were even keeping that a secret, as we were led to believe that they gathered to decide who among them would become the president of the church. But nope. It's always the president of the 12. And so therefore, that's the way Joseph Smith did it, even though he hadn't died yet to do it. Brigham Young just claimed that that's how it's done because he was the president of the 12. The others who formed their own churches claimed other ways of authoritative succession. So why not them? Why us? Because we were born and raised in this church, therefore ours is correct? Well, let's read more about the prophecy, shall we? For Mormons are the children of Israel and of the seed of Abraham, and Mormons must needs be led out of bondage. We just got told the church is in bondage. From the Book of Mormon Evidences, Mormon Apologists. Mormons aren't in bondage, the church is. And the church needs their religious freedom to overthrow the government and establish their kingdom with Jesus. Right? Yeah. He is born in the great and abominable church to free Mormons from the great and abominable church. What is that abominable Christ's name? So yeah, do you know him? Have you used science to study your scriptures to have the higher form of knowledge about him? Do I need to go back to verse 40 in the Joseph Smith history as to the importance of knowing him? Because this is the bicentennial year. It's also the final year of the latter days. Joseph had the bicentennial year specifically placed at the final year of the latter days for the bicentennial. And America is about to default on our debt. And we have been warned over and over again, even though we have never had this happen in the whole history of America. And so we're not exactly sure what will be the consequences, but everybody's pretty sure, as we've now dipped below 33,000 in the stock market as of yesterday, that it is going to hurt us, we the people of the United States, instantly. Are you prepared? Have you been hearkening to the true Christ of Joseph Smith to be prepared in advance of this? Because the great and abominable church is keeping it all a sacred secret from you. They are leading you as lambs to the slaughter to drink the Kool-Aid. But he said in the coming days. What happened in the coming days? Did you pay attention? Because it's all about overthrowing the government and the Constitution to establish a monarchy. And I'm sure all of you are aware of the Book of Mormon preaching against monarchies, that in the latter days the kingmen would seek to overthrow the Constitution of Mosiah to establish a monarchy again. And that Mosiah, when he gave up the monarchy, in Mosiah 29, listed very convincing reasoning why we don't want to have a monarchy. People never learn from history. They memorize, but they never learn.